Evelyn Aloha Tui Akoko Mai. Aloha.
Aloha.
Hello, Kiopo. My name is Kiopo Raymond. I'm so honored Kaleko calls me his older brother. He is certainly my younger brother. We're colleagues here at UH Maui College. Personally, I want to say mahalo for coming today. The overrider still here.
Yes.
Anyway. The reason Kaleko has asked me to come up is mainly because, and I'm sure many of you are aware of it, I'm sure many of you have supported, signed petitions, been to our rallies for Kila Kila e Haleakala. Kila Kila e Haleakala continues to fight against the Daniel K. Inouye Solar Telescope 14 stories atop Haleakala. It's under construction, but it's not over. The Native Hawaiian Legal Corporation is on the side of Kila Kila e Haleakala. We lost at the lower court levels. We lost at the Intermediate Court of Appeals. Over the last 2 months, we have presented, Native Hawaiian Legal Corporation has presented at the Hawaii State Supreme Court. That's how far it has to go before anybody really listens. I'll share with you folks, it was absolutely amazing to see the judges understand the big picture of what you folks are sharing in your na'au today. They were slamming the lawyers from the Institute for Astronomy. They were questioning the lawyers as to why they believed they could move forward the way they have. On Haleakala, the Institute for Astronomy has said this is adverse long-term cultural impacts to the mountain, and yet the Institute for Astronomy said, but you know what, we think we'll go for it anyway. The fight continues. You folks have probably been reading in the paper, and construction has started. I have, and I asked for your pule, and Le'ohu is here too. I'd like to ask Le'ohu to offer a pule for Haleakala, as really the only last thing that we can do is ask you to share in continued pule for Haleakala. But as far as the 30-meter telescope, the issues are not different. As far as we're concerned, as far as I believe you folks are concerned, you cannot mitigate the sacred. Summits are sacred areas. And you cannot say, well, it's okay for us to do what we're going to do. It isn't. It just isn't. So if we could offer a pule. Miki aloha, mahalo nui loa for all of your support. Haleakala, TMT, anti-TMT, mahalo nui.
Yes, we've been going the rounds. However, the prayer is, we are the pule. We each taking that breath every moment, being who we are, standing on the foundation of aloha, being present with the mindset of aloha and the heart set of aloha. That is the prayer. We know that Haleakala, what we do to Haleakala, we do to ourselves. It's so simple. What we do to our beloved mother, we do to ourselves. It's so simple, and yet going the rounds with the lawyers, the judges, we always kept saying, Kiope, those of us with Kila Kila o Haleakala, you cannot mitigate a culture. You cannot mitigate spirituality. You cannot mitigate aloha. And so each of you standing here in the embrace of this moment is that prayer. And as this beautiful makani comes, those blessings are profoundly offering the sweet fragrance and embrace of that love. So just for a moment, offer your ha cupped in your hand. And we send the prayer inside of us, the dreams that we carry and hold so sacred, the dreams and the thoughts the awareness when we look at the children, or when we think of our families, or when we think of our beloved ones that came before us, all those beautiful ones that taught us how to love and how to be Hawaii. We offer that love to them as well. So we say mahalo kia pua for this moment of oneness, that we may vibrate aloha as we have been taught. And may the mauna of all lands, the pahu of all lands, ignite the heartbeat of unity and lukahi and aloha. We are grateful, we are humbled, and we are one. In the name of all that is sacred, in the name of aloha, all love upon us. Amama uano atulela.
Nolila, mahalo. E kahe aku wau ku kaina. Au hea oe. Nolila, Vilina, aloha. Aloha ina. First, I'd like to mahalo all the students for helping to get all this together at University of Maui College, for taking the leadership role, the OPO. Mahalo. Fellow faculty in Hawaiian Studies, Brother Kiope, my boss Kahele, Kaniao, Papa Kaniao Ma'o, and the rest the affiliated faculty also. And again, I want to mahalo especially the students for taking the lead in organizing this. Let me say, originally, this talk was supposed to happen indoors with a big screen, the PowerPoint, and all that action. But as things work out, we go with the flow, and so we outside. Mawahoni. I was privileged enough on Friday morning to get up to Mauna Kea with the gang up there. I see Brother Means out here, and people back there, and everybody else who was up there also. And I just can say, what you see happening on Mauna Kea is kind of what you see happening all around the islands. Like you see what's happening here in Maui. You can see a spirit. You can see unity. You can see people saying no more. You can see people saying, we know there's a better way. We know people who are saying, we know we can do it together in unity. That even though they may have all the money and all the guns, it's the power of the people which will prevail. It's the power of truth which will prevail. It's the power of loving one another. Aloha aina, which will prevail. Aloha aina, it's the love of this place which will prevail. And you can see it and you can feel it, and we understand it. This is beyond just a movement on just Mauna Kea. Well, that's the key focus. But it's really about us, all of us, retaking and reclaiming our destiny as people of this land. As people, as I say, whether you're Kanaka or not, if your Evie is going to end up in the same ground as mine, and your keiki is going to end up in my keiki, and 40 generations down the line, we all end up together. We all end up together. See, that's the point. It's all of us together. It's all of us working together that will make the changes we need necessary to make a life that's better than the one that we have today. And so, instead of teaching, I don't have enough materials for everybody, so let me kind of start off by let's look at it, we can understand the context. So I only have 50 copies. We have to share. So if you can share it, somebody please share. If you can make copies, please copy. But first of all, we need to understand the context where we at. Oh, okay. So let's understand a little bit the history of this place, to understand the context of what's going on. Yeah. First of all, to understand places like Mauna Kea and Haleakala, those lands, all of those lands, were lands that were confiscated and seized by the landing of U.S. troops, January 17, 1893. We know for sure, we know without a doubt, we know for a fact, those lands belong to our people. And we can also say for a fact, our people have never given up consent to those lands. So it's an issue beyond, you see, just the question of sacred space. It's also an issue of self-determination and preservation. It's also an issue of justice.
And if you read through the history here, you can understand basically the history of these so-called lands. In 1810, Kamehameha unites the islands into a kingdom, an absolute rule on these rules. 1839, early on, we declare the Declaration of Rights in the Hawaiian Kingdom. 1840, we have the first constitution in the Hawaiian Kingdom. In 1843, probably the most important date in Hawaiian history, in 1843, November 20, 1843, the Hawaiian Kingdom is recognized as a sovereign and independent nation state, part of the family of nations. Now what's also important to understand, Hawaii is the first nation state recognized that's non-European. Before there was a China that was recognized, before there was a Japan and India, any of the African countries, any of the other Asian countries, this little kingdom in the middle of the Pacific was recognized as co-equals with the great powers of that time through what's called the Anglo-Franco Proclamation. And from then on, we are part of the independent nation states. So when people talk about, oh, Hawaiians, you guys just trying to get sovereignty, so you got to understand, that is confusion. We already attained our sovereignty back in 1843. But somehow in the Department of Education and private school education, not to mention names, much of this history is hidden. Much of this history is erased. Yeah, so we got to retell the true history. 1848, right, we know about the Mahele. Well, important in 1893, the so-called overthrow. Queen Liliuokalani, listen carefully now, she yields to who?
Territory of the
Who does she yield
United States.
to? January 17, 1893. To the superior forces of the United States of America. To be clear now, who does she yield to again, everybody? Superior forces of the United States of America. For how long? Well, she says, until such time, she doesn't say forever, that the United States, when presented with the information, will undo the acts of its minister and its military. In other words, let's be clear. When the Queen yielded her authority, well, what is her authority, first of all? Well, she was the mo'i wahine of the kingdom. She did not have, even if she wanted to, the authority to give up the whole country. It's like saying Obama today could say, I give up all America to some. They don't have that power. Again, we have a constitutional monarchy. Again, until such times, it's very clear from the very beginning, she never gave up consent, especially to the title of her lands, the so-called crown lands. Well, in 1893, the so-called provisional government who claimed stakes in the lands tried to pass a treaty of annexation to the United States. It failed. It's held up by President Cleveland at that time, who in fact called the act in Hawaii an act of war. Those words are the words of a U.S. president to describe the U.S. forces' actions in Hawaii as an act of war, being unlawful and illegal, and also describing the presence of the U.S. forces in the Hawaiian Islands as an occupation. As a what? As a military occupation. So when you hear Hawaiians using these words today, see, Hawaiians not making up, radicals making up this language. These are words itself that come from the United States President himself, Cleveland. So in that failure, the provisional government now transformed themselves into what we call the Republic of Hawaii, who say, oh, all the lands that had once belonged to the Kingdom of Hawaii, both crown and government, now belongs to ours. There are about 1.9 million acres of lands. Where are these lands? Places like Haleakala, places like Mauna Kea, places like all the harbors and many of the schools that you find in these islands. 1.9, how many acres again? 1. About 43% of all Hawaii's land. And some right here. Republic of Hawaii tried to organize, and in fact in 1897 they have a big push again for a second attempt of annexation. And what happens? The Hawaiian peoples organize, mainly led by the women, Huilhaina. And they organized to create what's called today the Ku'e petitions, or the Monster Petition Drive, where over 39,000 signatures were gathered of Hawaiians saying, no, We resist. We do not accept being annexed to the United States. This is taken to the Senate. And on the Senate floor, let's repeat, from the Senate, in the confirmation vote for annexation of these islands, it fails. What happens to this annexation at that? It fails. End the story. So when you hear people talk about the annexation of the Hawaiian Islands, in Hawaii we say it's Pulukeke, Palanayo. It never occurred. It never happened. That's part of the fairy tale. What happens in 1898, the following year, you notice it's called a New Lands Resolution. A New Lands what? Resolution. Not a treaty now. A New Lands what? Resolution. A resolution. Well, what is the power of resolution? You guys need to study that kind of stuff for United States history and constitutional law. A resolution of laws that only can effectuate U.S. territory. Only works where? U.S. territory. So how does Hawaii, as a foreign state at that time, get affected by a resolution? Well, it doesn't. In fact, when you actually read the records of the Senate floor and the debates, the senators themselves say, hey, if we can take Hawaii, okay, let's just take Canada, let's take Mexico. If we don't need their consent and we just did a resolution, let's do that. Obviously, they're being facetious and saying it's impossible. So all you have in Hawaii is a resolution, a joint resolution called the New Lands Resolution. That's it. Now the joint resolution is basically sets up what becomes the Organic Act of 1900s, which basically has two important points. First, it says all lands that once belonged to the provisional government and the Republic of Hawaii from the Hawaiian Kingdom now belongs to the United States. Well, when did the provisional government and the Republic of Hawaii somehow get claim and ownership to these lands? Well, they never did. So these lands are so-called ceded to the United States. Hence today we have these lands that are called ceded lands. But these are just seized lands. See, one of the things we also got to understand, people talk, oh, somebody stole all the Hawaiian land, What's false about that statement?
No.
Think about this, steal the land.
Can't go anywhere.
So I can steal this coffee here, although it's mine. How can you steal land?
Immovable.
You cannot. The land is still there. See, that's the point. That's part of a makeup of your mind. Somehow they stole it and went something. No, the land is still here. You see, that's just fraud. That's just words. You cannot steal land. All you can do is make fake paper. The land is still here. The land never went anywhere. See, places like Mauna Kea and Haleakala never went anywhere. They're still there. See, that's why you gotta open up our minds to understand. These are ways in which we gotta understand. They never left us. We are still upon these lands, still here. It's just a matter of us kind of recognizing those lands still belong to our people. Of course, 1920, Hawaiian Homelands Act. 1959, the so-called State of Hawaii. 1993, the Apology Bill, which also recognized the illegality of the acts of 1893. And so forth. But in regards to these two mountains, as you see on the bottom, if you have that sheet here, it says in 1961, we know through executive order, Governor Quinn of the so-called State of Hawaii, through executive order says, hey, we're going to set up and become Science City up in a place called Kolekole. Yeah, Kolekole, we call it in Papaanui, which is part of Honuaula, at the very top of Haleakala. Now, executive order is basically the governor says, hey, I'm going to pass this over to the University of Hawaii, and we're going to create this, what's going to be called Science City. Now, the question, of course, is, well, what authority did the governor of Hawaii have over those lands? When did he receive title and control of those lands? Again, if you follow the title, going back again, you realize, oh yeah, Big Puka again. There's definitely a break in the so-called chain of title. Because when did the Hawaiian Kingdom give up title and consent to these lands? When did it happen?
Never.
It never happened. Oh yeah. You see, that's the mythology. They try to make you believe something happened. And in fact, the governor really had the right to give up those lands. And I always, as I tell my students, if you can show me, you get an A in the class. I guarantee you can't find anything. I guarantee.
If you need anything, just text me. If he's confused, you're confused, whatever, just text me. Okay?
Now, many of you might be out there first time hearing this stuff and say, ah, this guy is full of pulukeke and he's making up all these stories. Well, I'm just going to pass on. This is just something for you can understand in regards to, this is on last year, April 19, 2014, at the UH Law School. You had a panel discussion. Former governor, this is former governor Waihe. In other words, he was the main chief at one time of the state government. The former governor, who's an attorney himself, quote, he says, I have absolutely no doubt that Hawaii is in an illegal occupation. An illegal what?
Occupation.
Okay, remember that word now. The former governor, not just crazy radicals running around making up these words. This is true. I have absolutely no doubt. I mean, you got to be illiterate not to finally get to that point. So if you have questions also about other opinions, well, you can look at Professor William Chang, oldest professor at the UH Law School, and his opinions about the so-called lack of treaty and jurisdiction, and also Dr. Keanu Sai. Yeah, so don't take my words for it. Yeah, you do your own research. So we have to have the right analysis. When we talk about places like Mauna Kea and Haleakala, we got to understand those lands and mountains belong to our people. We have never given up consent to those mountains. Yeah? So part of this understanding puts us in the right frame of mind, in context. So we talk about Haleakala, or we're talking about Mauna Kea. Again, we've got to be very clear. We've never given to consent to the 12 telescopes that sit on Mauna Kea today. Yeah, so when you're talking about putting the largest telescope on that today, this is all part of this mess and confusion. So let's start with the same analysis. So let me just talk about some specific things about Mauna Kea, especially the so-called TNT telescope. And you can find this on the web. There's a lot of information out there. But let me just touch on some of those things. Now, when I went there on Saturday, I got to go to the top and actually walk down to the site, the construction site. And I was amazed and I was stunned actually to realize how huge. It's probably going to be like from here to Ruby's. That's the footprint. That's the, yeah, and the actual footprint will be, and they're also going to have a launching station. And then the actual telescopes in the middle. So we're not talking about a small project. We're talking about a project which, in fact, as some have said, is as large as all the other telescopes up there put together. $1.4 billion being invested into it. Again, how much?
1.4 billion.
See why the money changers and money lenders all get nervous when Hawaiians get together. They get nervous when people start to ask the questions. 18 stories high.
18 stories.
How many stories?
18 stories.
8 acres.
That's high.
The footprint. The structure, 5 acres itself. That's the structure, 5 acres. A football field is 1.32 acres.
So it's like 3 or 4.
Will excavate 64,000 cubic yards of summit area. Largest development ever proposed in summit region, will be the second largest telescopes in the world is built. So some of the main issues that you can find here is not just the sacredness and sanctity of that place, but we're talking about the physical destruction of the top of the mountain. And then if you add to that some of the environmental concerns, not just some of the plants and animals and rare insects like the VQ that you find up in that area, but it's also the water table. That's also a big concern. There will be definitely an impact in regards to Mauna Kea, which has the largest aquifer system, right, as the highest mountain, and with the snows that melt every year. And anybody in Hawaii know, when water go underground, water moves. So there'll be a definite impact, just physically, by removing that much soil up in Mauna Kea with the TNT. Now, when you talk about science, one of the things I always tell students, so you gotta understand, people use words like science. What does it mean? Yeah, where does it come from? Yeah, there's this idea, oh, Hawaiians versus science. What is the foolishness of that?
Hawaiians have science.
Hawaiians have science like all humanity have science. You know, science is basically to know. Science. Via study. You watch something, you experience something, you check it out, after a while you make predictions. That's science. This is how we're able to sail across the most largest ocean 2,000 years ago to end up in Hawaii. This is how we're able to set up the aquaculture system, the fish ponds, the local ecosystems that we had to feed many of our people. This is how we had engineering to bring water from valleys into Hawaii, into the streams, into Alo'i. Yeah, so science has always been part of our worldview. But you see, a particular kind of scientist, they believe they're the only one to speak for everybody. See, that's called supremacy. Supremacy is built on this idea, I know better than you. In fact, not that I know better than you, I'm going to tell you what you should know. So when you look at the mentality, it's no doubt, I was just telling the story. When I was up in Mauna Kea, I kind of was shocked and stunned. You go to the top of Mauna Kea, get all these signs, which basically say, protected sacred culture areas. Watch out what you do up here. They get signs that saying it's a sacred area. And you gotta be careful. And it's right next to these huge telescopes. And it's kind of like, hello. You know, it's kind of amazing how they kind of think of themselves as being those that have the least amount of encroachment on those sacred places. When in fact, they're the largest destroyers of our sacred areas, are these telescopes. You know, something like 12 of the largest 24 telescopes are on Kaleakala in the world. It's an industrial process. It's industry. Yeah, this is like this kind of soft kind of, we barely affect the environment. When you're talking about developing something this large, it has a huge impact. Huge. Now, one of the great thinkers of time and strugglers, yeah, Mahatma Gandhi. Yeah, Gandhi said, one of the 7 sins that Gandhi said was science without humanity. What did he say?
Science without humanity.
That's the question. What is the humanity? Let me give you an example of the humanity. I kind of was interesting talking with some of the guys in Mauna Kea. We talk about Haleakala and the ATST, the solar telescope. And we met for the first time when I met with Craig Foltz, who was the head of the National Science Foundation. And I sat right across him. And I looked in and I said, hey, tell me, what is the great science? What's this humanity? What are you going to do? What is it so important? And he looked at me directly and he said, pure selfish research. What did he say?
Pure selfish research.
How do you think I felt when I heard that? You mean he's going to go up there, do this to this mountain, desecrate our spirituality for his pure selfish research? And he said it as if it didn't mean anything. So I thought he was going to tell me he's going to try to save a million lives, he's going to protect. No, pure selfish research. And I go to Mauna Kea and I'm talking to some of the young guys who had, if you remember the blessing a few months back, they went up there and they stopped the blessing ceremony and they talked to some of the astronomers and they asked the astronomers, come on, tell me, what are you doing up here? And their response was, curiosity. That was it, curiosity. See, the point I want to understand, see, that's the humanity. These scientists look upon our people as less than human. These scientists look upon our people as if we do not have a right to our own self-determination, don't have a right to our own spirituality, in our own lands, in our own mountains. And somehow we are less than them in our humanity. That their quest for curiosity overrides our humanity. See, that's supremacy. The supremacy is this, and many of these guys, they're not even, I mean, they have no connection to this place. And they have the idea that their curiosity, that they can come in here with their billions of dollars and do what they want for pure selfish research. See, that's the point we gotta understand. When people talk science, we gotta understand science is important, but science for humanity is even better. Because I can look across science and we understand science has been used against native peoples all over the world. How many of you heard of Inuwatak, Rongalap, Bikini? happen in those places? They might bomb the whole shit up, destroy those islands for science. What about Mururoa? Fangafa? The French had nuclear testing where? In Mururoa. And when they asked the French president, hey, how come you don't go take your nuclear testing and do it in France? What do you think he said? It's too dangerous. Think about the mentality. That's the same mentality that they have. They believe that that mountain belongs to them for their curiosity. But unfortunately, they don't understand the history. That mountain belongs to us, to our people. And if we are going to do things on that mountain, it's up to us to decide. See, I also understand. Our kupuna had a saying, "Wakapu kiola yakane," or "Kapu kiola nakane," which basically means life is sacred to Kane. It has to go back to the story of Kamehameha with the Mamalahoa story. With these two fishermen, we're going to kill Kamehameha. Well, Kamehameha is actually the bad guy in that, but they're going to kill this. And Kamehameha hears these two fishermen. And when the second one is going to kill him, he hears one of them say to the other, "Kapu kiola nakane," meaning, hey, don't kill him. Life is sacred. Meaning in Hawaiian thinking, the most important humanity is life. Life is sacred. So my point being, if you're going to do something on a mountain, and you can prove to me it's about saving lives. You see, as a Hawaiian, I can take it. You're going to save 1 million lives out there? I can take it. But if you're talking curiosity, and you're talking pure selfish research, see, what are you telling me is this. What are you telling me is I'm going to do what I want to do up there because I can. Because I got the power. Because I got the backing of money. Because I got the backing of government and private business. And that's what's going on about Mauna Kea right now. Well, some things about Mauna Kea, real briefly about this. Oh, why is Mauna Kea sacred? Well, let me just say there's a bunch of things. You can actually look at the Kumulipo. And within the Kumulipo itself, in one of the was, I can't remember the exact number, 11 I think, or 10, 11 I think, where it actually mentions Kahiko. In one of the stories, it's got an idea there's got a great flood that occurs and Kahiko ends up on the top of Mauna Kea. It's like obviously the highest point in these islands. But on top of Mauna Kea, we know it's also been called the Kapiko wa Kea. And up in the Kapiko wa Kea, you have all the various pu'u up there. Pu'u Poliahu. They're a snow goddess. Yeah, so when you see a beautiful snow up there, that's Poliahu. And Lilinoi. Yeah, that's the mist and rain that comes in that area. You have Lake Wai'au, which is the highest lake in the Pacific. One of the highest in the world. Yeah, which also connected to Mo'oinanea. Mo'oinanea is one of the grandmothers of all the Mo'o Wahine that we have out there. So this is their realm. This is part of the Wawakua. This is their realm. You know, we are the mere Kanaka. And so, when you encroach into that world, yeah, you encroach into our world. And so that's why I tell people to realize that these places are places that have important significance. The beautiful one I saw related to Mauna Kea, one of the names was Kahena o Nakuahivi. The henna, it has to do with reproduction. Kahena is that part of the woman, well, the front part, I guess. It kind of means slope in Hawaiian. But it had to do with the idea that the top of the peak is where you have this mixing of Wakia and Papa. This is the sexuality of bringing life. It's the beginning of life. Yeah, this is procreation, the powers of procreation and fertility at that point. So when we talk about sacred space, there's more than enough evidence of the sanctity and sacredness of that place. But yet, in fact, one of the things, I looked up one of the laws. You know, the Hawaii Revised Statutes, HRS 711-1107. You know, it's against the law. It's against the law to destroy any sacred sites. You know, you cannot go in and disturb and break this and do this. But yet, Mauna Kea, which has been documented over and over again, is set aside because of power and money. And that's really what's been going on. So let me last by looking at. One of the key people up there, you guys can go out and please go and contact this person. His name is Gordon Moore. Anybody heard of Gordon Moore? His wife Betty Moore. Well, he's the main guy of Intel. You know, Intel for your computers. But he is one of the main people that's put in about $250 million in this project. $250 million. See, part of this project is not just pure science and pure educational. You get investors. People are making money off of this stuff. And this person, in fact, is one of the main investors that we need to get to and talk to and explain the situation, ask him to pool his $250 million. Along with the University of California System, Institute of Technology, other countries and industries in India, China, Japan, and Canada. In fact, Canada, I think, promised $250 million into this project also. So all these monies are, I mean, people are not putting money here just to put money in. People are investing money here for investments at our expense. And last day when I passed on here, maybe I go this side, I don't know, coming around. And people talk about Aloha Aina today. The ideology of Aloha Aina. Well, one of the great, and I use the word prophets of Aloha Aina, of course, is the great voice himself, George Jared Helm Jr. And George Helm in 1977, who gave his life for Aloha Aina in the struggle over Kaho'olawe, the stopping of the bombing of Kaho'olawe. And as a young man, I still remember that day. I was at Kalama Park. I remember it was a windy, cold day in Kalama Park as a young boy in Kihei. And on the radio and the stories was talking about these guys missing at the ocean. And I remember looking out in the ocean and I remember wondering, whoa, the water looked real bad. But that was a day when George Helm and Kimo Mitchell gave their lives for the struggle over Kaho'olawe and Aloha Aina. And Aloha Aina, through that struggle, eventually was able to remove the U.S. Navy off of the whole island of Kaho'olawe. Yeah. But the Lord Aloha Aina goes back in history, especially to the time of the overthrow. See, when you use Aloha Aina, you gotta understand, Aloha Aina isn't something new. In fact, some of the great voices of our past, people like Navahi, people like Kalao Kalani, people like Kauli'a, all, Robert Wilcox, all use the term Aloha Aina. Aloha Aina was a term of the patriots who resisted the Americanization, who resisted the annexation. So when I look and I see signs out here, Aloha Aina, there's some things you gotta remember. It also has its deep roots, political roots, in regards to home rule and controlling for ourselves, our own destiny. And of course, breaking down the word Aloha Aina, Aloha means to love, to have compassion, yeah, to have this sense of connection as a mother has to her child. And Aina, that which feeds us, that which we stand upon. So when I think of Aloha Aina, I always tell my students, Aloha Aina isn't just this kind of like, ooh, I get this goosebump feeling. Aloha Aina is an action verb. Aloha Aina is to do. Yes, Aloha Aina actually is action. To love, to honor this place and this land, that which feeds us. And this ancient idea, of course, goes to the 1897 period, of course, reborn again in the 1970s over the struggle of Kaho'olawe. But it's kind of been reborn again in a bigger, stronger voice, especially dealing with whether it's food sovereignty, yeah, or dealing with issues over how do we take care of ourselves, in issues of power, and of course today, dealing with the protection of our sacred sites. But we must remember again the context of the word Aloha Aina. Yeah. Well, let's read George Helm real quickly. January 30th, 1977, he says, I have my thoughts, you have your thoughts. Simple for me, difficult for you. Simply, the reason is, I am a Hawaiian, and I've inherited the soul of my kupuna. It is my moral responsibility to attempt an ending to this desecration of our sacred Aina, Kohema Lama Lama o Kanaloa. For each bomb drop adds further injury to an already wounded soul. The truth is, there is man and there is environment. One does not supersede the other. The breath in man is the breath of Papa, the earth. Sorry. Man is merely the caretaker of the land that maintains his life and nourishes his soul. Therefore, Aina is sacred. The church of life is not in a building. It is the open sky, the surrounding ocean, and the beautiful soil. My duty is to protect Mother Earth, who gives me life, and to give thanks with humility, as well as ask forgiveness for the arrogance and insensitivity of man. What is national defense when what is being destroyed is the very thing that the military is entrusted to defend, the sacred land of Hawaii? The spirit of pride is left uncultivated, without truth, and without meaning for the keiki o ka'aina, cut off from the land as a fetus is cut from his mother. National defense is indefensible in terms of the loss of pride for many of the citizens of Hawaii. Call me a radical, for I refuse to remain idle. I will not have the foreigner prostitute the soul of my being. I will not make a whore out of my soul, my culture. All the archaeological discoveries, incredibly, are not enough cause, it seems, for the federal government to respect the sacredness of history. This continued disregard of our seriousness, this refusal to give credibility to the Hawaiian culture based on Aloha Aina, forces me to protest. So, with those words, I end with the great words of George Helm, and I ask all of you to educate one another, read all you can, and I ask any of you to put whatever kind of support you can in supporting Kila Kila Halekla and Kiopi folks. Or any of you, if you had the chance to go to Mauna Kea, now's the time to go. Keep your ears open, maybe your wallet open too, maybe time to support. It's one flight away, and listen for the call, the kahea, because we're gonna need bodies, we're gonna need support, and whatever you can do, whether it's Facebook, whether it's passing on the words to a friend, sending $5, providing whatever you support you can do. Yeah, this is the time, this is the moment in history. This is either we will stand together and create a new Hawaii, or be divided and be whatever we left to be. So to all of you, again, a mahalo everybody for coming down today and sharing, and please share the word. Aloha ina oi'io. Aloha.
Everybody, how's about a great speaker right here? Give it one more time for our speaker. Yeah. I just want to thank everybody for coming out here, support the cause. I just want to let everybody know I have a small announcement that I'll get out of everybody's way. June 9th, we're trying to put on another protest at Wailuku Courthouse. This next one is going to be primarily to support Hawaiian sovereignty, but what we're really trying to get past is this group and that group and all the different movements that don't want to cooperate with one another. So what this really is going to be about on June 9th is going to be all the different causes that everybody's trying to protest, all coming together and being heard at the courthouse on one day. And thank you, that's all I have to say. June 9th.